And welcome, everyone. I'm Bill Newell with Phil Stacy and Matt Williams from the Salem News. I think some others might join us as we move through this podcast, if you will. But gentlemen, welcome. Good to see you again this week. And we got another week of football in the books and another one scheduled to come up. And Phil, why don't we begin with unbeaten teams? There are a handful here. We've got Marblehead, Winthrop, Linfield, Ipswich, Fenwick. All unbeaten teams.
Correct. Where do you want to start?
Swampscott's unbeaten. They're 1-0, but we can put them in the list as well.
Can't forget about the Blue.
No, I don't want to forget about them.
Where do you guys want to start? Whoop, did you lose me?
No, we got
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay. Where do you want to start? Should we start over?
No, we're good. Why don't we start with Marblehead? Phil, okay. I know you're a recent observer of the Magicians and their 35-19 win over Masco over the weekend, but and a big 100th win for Coach Jim Rudloff.
Yeah, that was a nice milestone for him. Certainly, Jim is not easy going during a game. He's all over the officials and what he deems to be injustices against his team or whatnot, but. Marblehead, I don't want to say rolled to that win, but they built a nice 28-7 lead and kind of held Masco off from there. I really don't feel like Marblehead has played anywhere close to what they're capable of playing so far, which I think speaks to the talent level that they have, especially among their top dozen or so players. A lot of good players there in Marblehead. You start up front with the line, JT Monahan and James Miniacci and, Cam Janik, another captain along with JT. You got Josh Robertson at quarterback. You have George Percy and Connor Cronin in the backfield. Connor's only a sophomore, and Jim was saying post-game that he thinks he may be further along at this point than his brother Timmy was. And Timmy was, of course, one of the all-time great backs at Marblehead. All kinds of wideout options for Marblehead, Mark Paquette, James Duty, Goda Gaskins, a lot of guys that can throw the ball to there. So Marblehead has looked very impressive. And as I said, I think they can play even better. They're going to be playing a one-win Danvers team, a dangerous, I should say, one-win Danvers team on the road this week. They have a winless, I'm sorry, take that back. They don't play Salem in week 6. That's been rescheduled to Masco. So they'll be seeing Masco again in week 6, which I think will be a much different Masco team that they saw this past Saturday. And then, of course, they'll end with Swampscott, which should be a great duel. So is 7-0 possible for them? Sure. But I think it'll take some work, and they're going to need to get a lot better for that to happen. The talent is there, though, for Marblehead, the way that, what they had, the pieces that they have, and the promise of getting better that they have.
They tell me about the passing combination that you saw Saturday with Josh Robertson to James Duty for 3 touchdown passes. What were those like?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. It's again, it sounds like crazy to say, but I felt like it could have been even better than it was. Robertson's a terrific player. Duty runs really good routes. He's very strong hand, so he can go up and get the ball and then he hangs onto it. He made a great catch in one-on-one coverage where he went up over his the defensive back from Marblehead, basically wrestled the ball away from him, came down, used his body to gain leverage, and then ran the extra 15 yards or so into the end zone. Robertson is still, he's a junior and he's talented. Don't get me wrong, but he had 2 interceptions, which I don't think he had any Willie coming into the game. Did he over his first 3 games? I think he was like 8 touchdown passes, 0 interceptions. But
I don't know. I think
so. I think that might be it. But third play of the game, he made an ill-advised toss along the sidelines that was picked off, and then later in the game, when Marblehead really could have sealed it before they actually did seal it, he kind of forced a pass into the end zone that was picked off. So I do feel like the passing game could be even better than it is. These guys just run such good routes. They have such a terrific, agile quarterback who, 98% of the time knows when to hit his receivers. And what I think is really impressive, especially at this level, is that, as we know, all of us who follow football know, you're not really throwing to receiver A. I'm not like, okay, I'm trying to hit Kukuru on this play. You're throwing to a space that you expect Kukuru to be at. Well, these guys not only get into that space, but they get separation once they catch the ball in that space, which I think is what makes the passing game, with the accuracy that Robertson has displayed, that impressive.
We're talking about the remaining undefeated football teams here on the North Shore. So let's just jump to.
Well, if you want to talk about a passing game, and not to interrupt you, but Linfield has made the most of their passing game to stay undefeated. And we could talk about them for a little bit.
Yeah, let's talk about them because they'll be meeting another undefeated team this weekend, Friday night at Ipswich, or Friday.
Yeah,
Linfield
and almost like
at
two
Ipswich.
polar opposites there, because you have Linfield, which throws the ball all over the place, and you have an Ipswich team that I think until last week had not completed a pass. And then they finally did. Aiden Arnold, I think, hooked up with, Nikhil Walker for a touchdown pass. But that was the first completed pass I think they had all season. They don't really attempt any. They get by on the ground game, Ipswich, whether it's Chase Huntley, whether it's Cole Terry. They have a number of different guys that can move the chains. Defense is the bread and butter of that team. The line play has been really good with Captain Jack Weil leading the way up front. Almost for older sports fans, the no-name defense of the Dolphins of the 70s. It's kind of like that in Ipswich. Not a lot of name jump out at you recognition guys, but they certainly get the ball done well. I mean, they were all over Newburyport last week, and a favored Newburyport team, and Ipswich crushed them in Newburyport 33-6. And then you mentioned Linfield, Bill. They're 4-0. Their quarterback, Austin Sutera, has been lights out. Started the season with a 6-touchdown game against Triton. He's only improved from there. He's throwing passes all over the place. You have Blake Peters. You have Jack Ford. You have Bakari Mitchell, all guys who can catch the ball. DJ Capichetti out of the backfield. They've also been tough defensively. I think they have back-to-back 13-7 wins. Spencer Riley, I know in the defensive secondary, is pretty good for them. So when they come to Welch Field in Ipswich on Friday night, you're going to have two stingy defenses. You're going to have one team that loves to throw the ball, one team that loves to grind it out. If you're Ipswich, I'm sure you want to control that clock with your run game, keep Linfield's offense off the field. And if you're Linfield, you don't want to get into that, allowing Ipswich to have a 10-play, a 12-play, a 15-play drive that allows them to have success and find the way into the end zone.
Gotcha. I suppose we could just guys want to touch on Fenwick at all?
Well,
Sure, I mean, it's still going, still rolling. They beat Fian on the road. That's a tough school, a little bit bigger school than them, a school that's got some Super Bowl history in the decent past and some Super Bowl history on the sidelines, I believe. Teddy Bruschi calls the plays for their defense, and Logan Mankins is involved on the team too. Some expatriates send their kids to that parochial school down there. So nice job by Fenwick to get the better of those guys. Obviously they weren't playing and all, but on they go, Fenwick. I mean, I think in the CCL, as we know, there's really only going to be one or two teams that are capable of challenging them, and Fian was certainly one of them, but they remain undefeated, and probably if you went to Vegas, that'd be the team that had the best odds preseason of going undefeated, right? Was Fenwick. So they have lived up to it so far by a mile.
They're at Archbishop Williams this coming Friday, so they'll be on the road. Will Dave
and again,
Woods
they don't
company.
have any stats that like jump off the page and hit you in the face. I mean, they don't have anybody averaging, let's say 120 yards on the ground. They're not throwing for 250 a day. Nobody with 10 tackles a game. It's a group effort at Fenwick, which I think the sum is greater than the whole of its parts kind of deal, because there's so many options that they can turn to. It's really difficult for opposing teams to focus on one guy and stop them. And it's difficult for opposing offenses to make any hay because they just swarm at you defensively. There's not one standout defensive player. There's 10 or 11 of them. So it makes it awfully difficult if you don't get an early lead on Fenwick to defeat that team.
Unselfish guys too, right? Because I think if you combined the passing stats for Stephen Woods and Chris Wilson, right, you'd have the best quarterback in the area by a mile, with all respect to Josh Robertson. So the fact that those guys can go in and out and are both comfortable throwing the ball, and their offense doesn't skip a beat, sometimes the quarterback spot, as we've seen with Brady and Garoppolo and Fitzpatrick and Tua, right? When you're switching quarterbacks, sometimes that can make waves and cause some issues on your team, right? But not at Fenwick. They're unselfish guys, team first guys, and so I think full marks to both Steven and Chris for what they've been able to do switching off. I think their passing attack as a whole is a monster.
Well, just to divert from the undefeated talk for 1 second, but kind of going off what you said, Willie, I believe, having updated the stats yesterday, the area passing leader is from a team that we've both seen, but they're 1-3, but they throw the ball a ton with great success as Essex Tech.
Yeah.
Devin LeBron has like 700 yards passing in 4 games, with his favorite receiver being fellow sophomore Jace Dooley, who I think has something like almost close to 30 catches in 4 games.
Yeah, they play from behind a lot, right? So you got a little bit of Matt Stafford there, just throwing it up, but certainly, a great hookup, guys that are going to be hooking up for the next 3 years and are probably going to set some records over there at Essex Tech. And the records are pretty good. If you go back to, the early 2000s, they had some good passing games. So those aren't cheapies either when those guys break those records in a few years.
And Kooks, you saw Linfield this past weekend. I don't know if you were in when we were talking about them earlier, but they must have been strong defensively, shutting out Manchester Essex.
Honestly, I didn't think they were particularly that physical, though. And Manchester Essex, not the most physical of teams. They moved the ball until their starting quarterback got hurt. They just turned the ball over 6 times. But I was really impressed. They did have a real high flying offense. They don't air it out down the field a lot, but their quarterback Sutera throws to a bunch of different guys, and he just kind of picks you apart. It's like you get him in like a 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, and he was making the throws every time he did it. And then, once he'd hit a few of those short ones on you, they'd beat you over the top with something. It was Blake Peters was the guy who had the big game Saturday against Manchester Essex. And Jack Ford, I think, is their leading receiver. He only had a couple catches, but he had a 96-yard fumble return for a touchdown when it was 8-0 Linfield, and that kind of really swung the entire game. And Manchester Essex starting running back and quarterback both got hurt on that drive, and they didn't really threaten again after that.
I think the only other undefeated team I think we have is Winthrop, right, from the greater North Shore area. Well, I saw them play Salem, and that wasn't a particularly close contest. But you can see the parts that Winthrop has that make them a special unit. I mean, defensively, gang tackling is a specialty. They're tough. They hit low, so that not low in an illegal way, certainly, but they hit low so that on that first hit they're bringing guys down. When necessary, they can gang tackle with the best of them. They're quick to the outside and they swarm to the inside. So I really like what they've done as far as their defensive setup there. Most people know that the quarterback, Duke Doherty, came over from Everett. He's a big kid. I bet Duke is probably 230 or so. He's tall and big, but he's elusive. He's fast. He's got some speed, and he's got a lot of talent around him. Ryan Hovermail, I know he ran for over 100 yards the day I saw them. Chris Ferrara was pretty good. Cam Martin, Mike Chavez on the outside caught a touchdown pass. Ferrara caught a touchdown pass the day I saw them. Brian, what was his last name? Coniasaro, I think, was another one. It was a dual threat for them. So they get a lot of weapons. When are they scheduled to play Gloucester, Cooks?
This coming week.
This week,
Friday.
Yep.
So that'll be a good game. That'll be a real good game.
So that kind of ties into our undefeated talk in a way. Gloucester was undefeated until this past weekend, but they're undefeated in the league as far as league play is concerned, while Winthrop also undefeated in league play and undefeated overall. So let's go to Gloucester, Nick, and tell me more. How do you see this game this Friday night, Winthrop at Gloucester?
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to say Winthrop's the favorite, right? Just from, what they've done. They pounded on Saugus 28-0. I mean, Salem is kind of a tough, barometer. I'm sure that was there were backups in that game by the middle of the third. But I mean, they're good. They beat Framingham this last week, who's a huge school. Went down there and beat them 22-6. So I mean, when Winthrop's good, they're usually really good. So I mean, you got to say they're the favorite. Gloucester. Willie was down there on Saturday. They had a bit of a tough go with Beverly. From what it sounded like, they were dominated up front, and that's kind of the way you can get at Gloucester. If you win that line of scrimmage battle, it really kind of puts them in a hole that is tough to get out of. So I mean, I think that'll be the key this week. Gloucester's going to have to win that battle up front, because I think Winthrop's going to have an obvious edge at the skill positions.
Yeah, it's too bad that, somebody asked me over the weekend, who's the second best team in the NEC? Is it Winthrop? Is it Peabody? Is it Masco? And, of course, this being Marblehead is number one, right? And it's too bad that this COVID stuff really took away some of the marquee games we'd see with Winthrop. I would love to have seen them play Peabody. I would love to have seen them play Swampscott, who might be the second best team in the league and hasn't played and isn't going to play anybody really until Thanksgiving. Whatever we're calling this Thanksgiving against Marblehead. It's just with some of the schedule changes, I wish we could see Winthrop play Marblehead or Peabody, and then we would know, because Framingham, I mean, yeah, they're a Division I team, and I saw the Boston papers made a big deal out of that. Oh, Division 7, Division I, whatever. But I mean, as we know from when the GBL was in the NEC, sometimes the division really doesn't matter. And I'm not even sure if Winthrop is Division 7. I feel like last time they were in the playoffs, they were in 4, right? They did really well against Linfield. So I think to say, well, Winthrop's Division 6, 7, whatever they are, is underselling them a little bit. I mean, they're better. It's not as if it was played up as if it was like Salem State beating Boston College or something, and that's just not reality. We all know Winthrop is good enough. I mean, if I was asked to pick that game, I would have picked Winthrop. I don't know about you guys.
Which one, Willie?
Winthrop and Framingham.
Yeah, I think I would have picked Winthrop too, just based on what we know about the two schools. You're right. It portrayed a little bit as a David versus Goliath. And I suppose in terms of school size, maybe that's true. But talent-wise, no, I think Winthrop was certainly right there with them, if not better, as they showed in the end result.
So, I mean, when they play Masco at the end of the year, that could tell us who's the second best team in the league. I mean, I don't know. Who do you guys think is, if we were doing power rankings, who's their number 2? I really don't know who I would choose.
Honestly, right now, and I haven't seen them yet. I mean, I will this Saturday, but it seems to me like Peabody's playing awfully well. And you could tell us that. You've seen them 3 times, but defensively, they seem like they're pretty tenacious. They seem settled at quarterback with the young sophomore, Shea Lynch. Maglioni's return was a big boost to them. They have some options that they can run the ball, throw the ball. I mean, it seems to me like they're a pretty complete team.
They're playing well right now. I'd like to see them move the ball a little better offensively. Defensively, they're excellent. I mean, Masco, when healthy, I mean, that's the asterisk right there, right? I just keep going back to Masco didn't have Teddy Fellows. They didn't have Greg Walker in the second half. They didn't have either Nad Warney boy yet. So it's like you put
and I don't think they will have Walker for the rest of the year. It sounds like he's out for the season with a dislocated shoulder.
Yeah, that's tough. And I mean, again, it's football. Everybody's banged up, right? But I just feel like sometimes it's like you put that full Masco team on the field together and they're going to really be able to give people a run for their money. And it sounded like the Peabody Masco, they both had similar games against Marblehead. Marblehead did a little bit better job putting extra points on the board, right? But they both kind of fell behind, came back a little bit. Marblehead learned from its mistakes and finished Masco better. And hey, I guess Peabody got the better of Masco in their game, right? Even though it was only by 4 points. So I guess you got to give them the nod. It's either them or Winthrop. And, Masco being under 500, maybe Beverly is 4th. I don't know. We'll find out this week.
I think Beverly's kind of an interesting. I think Beverly's a little bit interesting because, in reality, maybe that's a stupid way to say it because they lost, but they really should be 3-1. I mean, they gave away a game week 3 in Danvers. They led 14-0. Never should have lost that game. I think anybody associated with the program will tell you that. But they are what they are. They're 2-2. I think when they come to play, they're as tough as anybody not named Marblehead in the league. They got blown out by Marblehead. I'm not saying that they're on a level with Marblehead. They just don't. They're skilled, but they don't have that kind of skill. But I think they are difficult. It's just more of which team is going to show up. Can they keep their foot to the pedal to the metal, so to speak? It sounds, Willie, again, you were there Saturday and I wasn't, but it sounds like when they got that early lead against Gloucester, was it going to be a repeat of what happened against Danvers when Gloucester started coming back? No, they put those thoughts to rest early in the third quarter and won quite easily by 4 touchdowns. But they have to have a little staying power and show that that's not just a 1 week thing, that they can continue to do that. This Saturday's game against Peabody will be a great test for both teams, I think.
I mean, Beverly did a great job of taking advantage of their opponent's mistakes, right? So I guess the question for them is like, are they going to be able to impose their will against an opponent that does not make mistakes, right? And the only opponent they've played so far that didn't make mistakes was Marblehead, and we saw what happened, right? So that's sort of what what you're worried about, and I think it's a similar thing for Peabody, right? They've taken advantage of turnovers caused by their defense. They haven't driven the full field. And it's the same thing for Beverly. They didn't have really any 80, 90 yard drives against Gloucester. They took advantage of Gloucester's mistakes, and that's great, right? I mean, that we don't criticize the Patriots when they win that way, but at the same time, you'd like to be able to establish the run maybe a little bit more. And it was just a funky game. I mean, Beverly, I think nobody touched the ball for them more than 6 times. Which is just strange. I mean, when you score 2 special teams touchdowns, the whole fourth quarter gets eaten up by a Gloucester drive. I think they ran 5 offensive plays in the third quarter or something like that. And, recovering a fumble on the very first play, that touchdown drive was only 2 plays. And the next touchdown drive was 2 plays, 2 Joey Loretti runs. So they just didn't, I don't know. Maybe they didn't have an opportunity to get into a rhythm offensively, right? So maybe it's unfair for me to criticize them for that because, they never got the ball at their own 20 with a chance to drive the field either. So, I mean, you can't get them in trouble for something they didn't have a chance to do, I guess.
I'm interested to see how the 2 quarterbacks respond on Saturday. On the one hand, you have a Shea Lynch who has shown that he's cool under pressure. It was 20-0 at halftime against Marblehead. Is that right? And he led the team back to a couple of scores on the precipice of a tying score late in that game. Played very well against Masconomet. Again, at the controls against Danvers, smooth, steady the whole way, played well. And then you have the senior Danny Morency in Beverly, who has shown what he's capable of, lined up in that shotgun, running the offense that way, taking advantage of his skills as a strong runner. But also with a deft touch, who can find his receivers in space. And, as Willie alluded to, Beverly has a lot of ball carriers, whether it's Joey Loretti or Jordan Irvine or Jay Sean Jones or Grant Easton or whoever else they want to roll out there that he can hand the ball off to. So which quarterback is able to matriculate his team up and down the field to draw from Len Dawson? I'm sorry, not Len Dawson, the Hank Stram, that famous clip there, matriculate up and down the field.
I like Keeve too. He's a nice receiver there on the outside for them. Made a real nice play to set up their field goal before the end of the half that really changed the game. So, definitely got to watch number 9, Owen Keeve for Beverly.
Well, and of course, we mentioned earlier the Peabody coming off the win against Danvers last week, 24-7. So a big game for Peabody on the road, Saturday, 1:00 in Beverly, adjacent to the high school there. So that's kind of a look at some of the undefeated teams, some of the key games coming up this weekend. A little shout out to Saugus. They won their first game of the year, 42-6 over Salem. So the Sachems with a win there this past weekend.
Good bounce back for St. John's Prep.
Yeah.
After really taking it on the chin at Catholic Memorial the previous week, they go out to St. John's of Shrewsbury and pull out a 14-7 win with their backup quarterback, Jack Perry. That's a good win for them.
How about my guy, Jungle Jack, huh? That's pretty good. He's a nice 3-point shooter, too.
Yeah, he is. And, Coach Brian St. Pierre was telling me that his numbers would have looked even better if he hadn't had 3 drops on him. He was really impressed with the way Jack ran the offense and helped move the team into scoring position on a number of occasions and getting that fourth quarter touchdown that they needed that ultimately won them the game.
And the Prep will host Severian on Saturday in Danvers.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, anything else? It's kind of any other shots you want to make, whether it be football or a non-football story to kind of put the finishing touches on this week's edition? Football, non-football, anything else happening?
Yeah,
Nick, why don't I throw? Let me throw Nick on the spot here on that one.
Well, I mean, track season's going. Last week, Gloucester track, they hosted their first home meet since 2018. And if you count the high jump and the shot put going off inside, it was their first home indoor meet in close to 10 years because the, field house was a total joke of a mess. And they got that refurbished, and they got, Newell Stadium obviously refurbished. They couldn't have a season in 2019 last year, COVID outdoors, obviously. So, they got to host Saugus over at Newell Stadium last week and got a sweep out of it. So, yeah, that's really the only other non-football news in my area. Seeing that there's no volleyball teams or Rockport teams.
There you go.
Thanks.
Phil?
I was going to say I had a chance to see pretty good volleyball match last week. I always enjoy watching Danvers. George Levasseur has built such an incredible program there with the Falcons, and they continue to roll. I think it was 69 straight wins when I was there. I think they've since made it 70 or even 71 now, but they really had a formidable opponent, Mascon. I was really impressed with the way that Masconomet played. I think Danvers is so good that a lot of teams are, what's the phrase, defeated before they even play kind of thing against them. But that was not the case with Masco at all. They went right at them tooth and nail. They didn't back down at all, no quarter given. And they lost in 4 sets for the second time this year. But I don't think there's a whole lot except maybe experience that Danvers has that some of the Masco players don't, separating them. So nice job by Coach Mike Scammon and his Chieftains to put up forth a great effort against a state powerhouse in Danvers.
Willie, you want to take a shot at that?
Oh, got some baseball. Reggie Maidman has returned to Hamilton. I'm not saying it's like General Patton there in the Philippines or whatever it was, but no, he's back. Rehired, took a year off, ended up not missing any games. So interesting news for the Gens. We got our baseball coaching openings have been filled. Salem High's going to have Jesse Amaya around. He was an assistant under Gavin Softick and assistant Gordon as well. So great guy, knows baseball so very well. So 2 new faces on the baseball coaching scene, but very familiar. Both of them are. So that's great news here as we wrap up football and get ready for baseball in just about 3 weeks now.
Reggie is a good man. It's iron sheet class, I would say.
I would say so. Yeah, it's nice. Fortunate for the Generals, they were able to get a man with such experience on somewhat short notice there. That's pretty cool. Worked out well for everyone, I think.
Yeah.
And a note, we've talked about Lynn English boys basketball a number of times over the weeks, and they won their GBL title or playoffs they have in the Greater Boston League this past weekend. And Coach Antonio Anderson announced that he's leaving the program. He's going out to coach in Springfield Academy, I believe it is. And
Wow.
so taking over that basketball program. So leaves with 2 straight state titles, and then this year with the GBL, go as far as he could in the Greater Boston League. They were down in that game against Everett on Saturday, came back to win, but so he goes out with a big win, and certainly they were dominant in basketball on the North Shore and beyond for sure for those years. So on that note, I guess we'll say so long then, gentlemen. Good seeing you.
Thanks, Bill. Take care.